We have a lot to talk about and a lot of information that's going to be shared by a lot of experts and homegrown experts and friends of Oakridge. So please pay attention, write your questions down. There'll be a chance to do that, and we'll give you some direction as to how to participate. We're going to be talking about wood heating. We're going to be talking about upgrades, the impact of smoke. We're going to be talking about air filters. We're going to be talking about keeping our community firewise. So there's a lot of information coming your way. Stick around. I hope you enjoy it. Travis, all yours.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Appreciate that, and just kind of want to welcome everybody here joining us this evening for tonight. I have a lot of good information to share with you all about Oakridge Air program, which has been something we've been working on for a little while now, about a year. And as we move forward, we'll have more to sort of more impact or more presence in the community, as well as these programs really start to get going. But first and foremost, I want to talk a little bit about what Oakridge Air is. And it is a targeted airshed grant, which is basically a grant from the EPA to improve air quality in places across the country. Oakridge Air is one of those places, or Oakridge, I should say, is one of those places where we are receiving sort of support from the EPA to improve air quality here in the Oakridge community, Oakridge-Westfir community. And there's many aspects to the Oakridge Air program. This here that you see on your screen is just sort of some of the things that we are doing with the Oakridge Air that involves homewood heating upgrades. There's a community firewood program helping to provide firewood to community members, a community and school education where we're helping to develop curriculum for the schools in the area, air filter aspect to the Oakridge Air program as well. We're putting air filters in schools to improve the air quality, the indoor air quality, as well as providing filters to residents in the Oakridge-Westfir area to improve air quality in those homes, which is after the September we had from Labor Day sort of into mid-September with the wildfire smoke. Those air filters are certainly a benefit, and we'll talk a lot about that and how you can participate that, as well as code enforcement. That's another aspect to the Oakridge Air program. So a very multifaceted sort of program that that we're putting on here. There's been a lot of work organizing these efforts and assembling everything. So essentially, who's paying for all of this work to be done in the Oakridge-Westfir area? Well, as I mentioned, it's a targeted airshed grant. So back in 2018, the Consolidated Appropriations Act, which was from Congress, essentially funded $40 million worth of grants for non-attainment areas across the country. And non-attainment basically just means a region where the air quality is not meeting federal standards. And so Oakridge is one of those areas, or was. We've seen quite a bit of improvement, and this work will help to improve the air quality even more. But the money received from the EPA was just a little over $4.9 million. And that is money that's being used to fund all of this work that will be done in the Oakridge Air program, which includes homewood heating, school education, the air filters, and the like. So here's a quick little breakdown of sort of the program in general, the timetable. There's a lot of information on here, so don't spend too much time, but more to just drive home the point of how long we'll be sort of in the community talking about Oakridge Air, and that's 5 years. Right now, we're kind of wrapping up the early parts of the first year. The Targeted Airshed Grant was awarded in October of 2019. So we're about right at that first year. A lot of it still is in the sort of development phase, the planning phase. We're about to move into the pilot program on the homewood heating, but give it, just a few more months, then these programs really should kind of hopefully become well-oiled machines. And what we're going to be talking about today is how you can participate in these programs and how you can receive the benefit from this work that's being done in the Oakridge and Westfir area. And there are a lot of people that have been involved sort of helping to assemble these programs, and just here are sort of the logos for all of our partners that are participating on the Oakridge Air program. So it's many people involved to really make these things work, and we hope that you will be able to participate as well, because a big component to making Oakridge Air successful is sort of participation from the Oakridge-Westfir community. So who of us us will be speaking tonight. Heard from Kathy, myself, I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Travis Knutson. I'm the Public Affairs Manager for the Lane Regional Air Protection Agency. We are LRAPA as the people who have received this grant from the EPA, and then we're helping to provide this work to the Oakridge community to begin the Oakridge Air program and turn it into a successful 5-year program. We'll be hearing from Gwen Patty, who I'm sure some of you know in the Oakridge area, Dr. Volpe from Oakridge Air, or Orchid Health, Louisa from Good Company, Rick from South Willamette Solutions, Justin Patton from the Oregon Department of Forestry. I think we'll hear from Anne, or she might have had something kind of grab her this evening, but we'll also hear from Sarah Altimus Pope from South Willamette Solutions as well. So here's a quick look at the agenda of everything we'll be talking about. So the first 10 minutes, kind of what we're going through now, is the introductions. Beyond that, we'll actually talk about the smoke impact on your health. So we'll look into some of the data science for public good findings, looking at some science and some data about smoke and its impact on community members. At about 6:30, we'll get into the Oakridge Air program itself. We'll hear from Rick about sort of how you can participate in the homewood heating upgrades, the air filter programs, and more of those specifics. Then as we get into the 6:50 timeframe, we will talk about the Oakridge Smoke Safety Plan, which Sarah Altimus Pope will have more information on that. And that's essentially sort of a plan that's being developed on how the community will respond when we see smoke intrusions to our area, which we saw in September is something that can't happen with wildfires. And so it's good to have a plan on how best to respond. And then 7 to 7:30, we will start talking about Firewise, explain a little bit what the Firewise program is, and how you can participate to help make Oakridge-Westfir a Firewise community. A little bit of sort of some Zoom keeping here. If you do have a question and you want to have an answer to that, we will be taking questions throughout the evening. Just click on the little chat button that you see on your screen or on your phone, and then you can send a chat to multiple people. Just send a chat to me. You'll find my name, Travis Knutson. Send it to me and I'll kind of compile those questions. And then when we have an opportunity to take them, we'll take them and get an answer. And if we don't get to your question, if we have too many, we run out of time, it's pretty easy. My email address is just travis@lrapa.org. And you can send me an email and I'll be sure that we can find the answer or get the answer to the question that you may have. So that kind of concludes a little bit of the Oakridge Air, or the introduction. We'll start to go into the health findings, and Gwen, I believe, is with us to sort of take over that part here. Gwen, let's see, you on there?
I am here, and I'll start my video. And please let me know if my video and chatting don't go together very well. I've had this problem in the past for whatever reason. I think maybe my computer is just a little bit old. But anyway, thank you for the intro, Travis. My name is Gwen. I am an Oregon State University graduate student in sustainable forest management. And my email's there in case anybody after this wants to send me a follow-up question, or if anybody who watches this video later wants to do that. But I worked with data science for public good this summer with my team, which was Particulate, Aga, and Adam Conrad, and our faculty mentor, Ann Thesson. And we partnered with Oakridge Air, LRAPA, OHA, and LCOG, and the Postal Pharmacy to kind of go over our research question and kind of tackle the problems that we've been seeing in Oakridge in the past and try to set a plan to move forward for the future. And so next slide, please. And so what that looked like is answering this research question, and I'm gonna read it. It's kind of a mouthful, but I'll go a little bit more into it in a second. So from January 2015 to present, have past peak smoke events caused a statistically significant increase in prescription counts? And this is for select respiratory and cardiac ICD-10 codes and within 30 to 45 days of an event. So what does that really mean? We worked with OHA to figure out what respiratory and cardiac ICD-10 codes, basically diagnosis codes, are associated with smoke inhalation, anything like that. And if a smoke event has happened within 30 to 45 days, what are the health implications of that? And why this mattered to us is that Oakridge was really facing a problem for decades with our air quality. and we had some of the worst air quality, not only in the state, but also in the nation. And we're a really vulnerable population here. We're low income, we have an aging population, and this makes us really vulnerable. And to really try and make sure that we're protecting our people, we want to address this. And why is this happening? Because Oakridge is kind of in a bubble. The picture on your right-hand side kind of shows Oakridge. I'm sure you guys know we live at the bottom of a kind of a valley. And what happens is we get this inversion layer. So we have this cool air and this warm air settling on top, and that warm air rises, kind of as everybody knows. The warm air keeps that cool air down, and that cool air gets full of smoke. And that's kind of what causes our problems. So to begin answering that question, we actually had to answer the secondary research question. So if you can please move to the next slide. Perfect. And I'm not going to go super into the weeds with these, and if you want me to, I can, but this is what we call summary statistics, and this gives us kind of an idea of what's happening with our air quality data, which we obtained from LARAPA. But I'm going to go through at least the first question because it'll hit on a lot of vocab that I want to talk about a little bit, and I'll talk about more in the later slides. So the average number of days Oakridge experiences elevated 24-hour PM 2.5 levels, which are greater than 35 micrograms per meter. And so what does this mean? So PM 2.5, kind of as we sort of talked about, that's smoke, and it stands for particulate matter, and 2.5 is the diameter of that particulate matter. So you can have PM 2.5, which is associated with combustion, or you can have like PM 10, which is associated with pollen, and that's kind of what induces your allergies, right? So the size of the PM 2.5, it can penetrate, or the size of the particulate matter means that it can penetrate into your body and into your airways, the smaller it is. So, and that 35 microgram part is talking about the concentration, and that 35 is set by the EPA. So this is what we kept in mind when we were looking at all this data. And if we move to the next slide, this is a this is a daily averaged look at what has happened in the past 5 years. And so on the left-hand side, we have PM 2.5, that's smoke concentration. On the bottom, we have the dates over the past 5 years kind of summed up, so it's easily readable. And each blue dot represents a single day, and that red line is that EPA threshold. And so as we have these dots, can you click one more time? Because it's gonna, yes. We're gonna have these boxed looks at areas where the PM 2.5 has surpass that threshold set by the EPA. And if we take a really close look, what we'll see is that's happening in the winter months and the summer months. And so moving forward, we took another look at what's happening daily. And this is really important because the smoke can affect us at different times of the day, and that inversion layer can settle at different times of the day, and it's dependent on season. So again, left-hand side is the smoke concentration. The bottom is the 24-hour clock. And each line represents the pattern that the smoke concentration takes as we go through the different seasons. And so this is taken an hourly average of every data point for our 5-year data set. And what we see is at around like 10 to midnight, we have this really high bump in PM 2.5. Yes, thank you. And we're really seeing that heavily in the winter months. And what's important here is looking that the concentration is 25. So that is below the threshold. And what I'm going to tell you, I hope makes sense, but our data is skewed. And what that means is we have a lot of zeros in our data, meaning that there's a lot of days where our PM 2.5 or our smoke concentration is low. So that is pulling our data down. So if we're reaching that 25 threshold, that means when it's bad, it's really bad. It's really pulling it up. So if we want to do one more click, yeah, we can see that in the fall, which is in the orange, the green, which is spring, and summer, which is red, we really don't see it as extreme, except for the fall. We're kind of getting into that, and the summer, into the burning season. So that might be raising it a little bit. So moving on to the next slide. This is our first look that we had looking at prescription counts and PM 2.5 concentration. And I know this is kind of busy, so I'm going to break it down. On the left-hand side this time, we have the number of prescription fills, and those are represented by the gray bars. And each gray bar represents a single month. The bottom, we have the dates over our 5-year data set. And on the right-hand side, we have PM 2.5, smoke concentration. And this time the scale has been log transformed. And why we did that is just so that prescription counts and that the smoke concentration could kind of be at a similar level, which helps us humans visualize patterns that are happening. And the red line is really showing that visualization over time. And what I'm hoping that we can kind of point out, if we do one more click, is we have this spike in PM 2.5 at a given time period. And sorry about my dog. If we click one more time, we have this gray bar spike. And so what our statistics really want to get at is, are we seeing a pattern? And if we are seeing a pattern, what is this pattern? Because our eyes like to play tricks on us. And so we built a statistical model that is trying to see what is happening, if it's happening. And the outcome of that was, I'm going to say this really mouthful phrase, and then I'm going to break it down a little bit. But this is like the scientific way. We estimate the multiplicative rate at which cardiac and respiratory prescriptions are filled is 3% higher 30 days after a smoke event for each 10-unit increase in PM 2.5 concentration. So with a statistically significant result, what does that mean? Basically, for the prescriptions that are filled for those specific ICD-10 codes, they're being filled 3% higher when a smoke event happens for the 10-unit increase. So if we go up to 50 units, let's say, and that means we're going to have a 15% increase 30 days later of prescription fills. So think about what happened this summer, where the smoke concentrations were so high and the AQI was so bad that we were outside of the range that the EPA had. So I can't even really estimate what percentage the prescription counts are going to go up. And that is going to have a really huge impact also on other healthcare providers, because prescription counts are really kind of the end of the pipeline when it comes to healthcare that's being provided. There's a lot of I'm going to say in-house, but like in the doctor's office, remedies that are given for smoke. And I know that Dr. Volpe can talk to that much better than I can. So I don't know if I'm going to give questions now or give questions after Dr. Volpe, if somebody wants to let me know, but I know that he is after me.
We'll do questions with Volpe and you sort of all together at one.
Okay, sounds good. Then I'm going to hand off to Dr. Volpe. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Gwen. So yeah, to sort of piggyback onto Gwen, some of the data that she's given, she's looking at prescriptions out of postal. I would expect that data to be even more great when you consider the individuals that go to the emergency department and get prescriptions out of the emergency department and don't even make it to postal. Those really severe cases that wind up there, which make up a large number of the health effects of smoke. So I'm going to speak a little bit about, why is some of the things that Gwen said, why is this important? What effect does this have on our population in Oakridge? So up here we have our inhalable particulate matter. This is a measure of the PM25 over a 24-hour period. Shows over the last couple of years about 2 decades plus where we were and where we're at. The positive thing is that we've come down. The less than positive thing is that we still hover around that 35 microgram per square meter level. So why the 35 microgram per square liter? So a little bit, I'm going to back up a little bit and talk about the health effects. So we know smoke is bad for chronic health conditions, in particular our cardiopulmonary health conditions. You know, it increases your risk of lung cancer, increases your risk of stroke, increases your risk of congestive heart disease, idiopathic heart disease, ischemic heart disease, COPD. When you look at WHO data, World Health Organization data, we know that it can account for, depending on the disease, on average, upwards of 1/3 of all disease as the primary cause. So the primary cause of 1/3 of COPD worldwide is environmental pollution, most commonly in the form of ozone and particulate matter, right? So most of my talk today is going to focus on particulate matter, but ozone is certainly another concern that we have when it comes to health effects. But particulate matter is a much easier thing to measure and to filter out, and is the focus of this program in particular. So with these chronic health conditions, there's been a number of studies that have sort of looked at what is the effect on morbidity and mortality. And when doctors say the words morbidity and mortality, morbidity means disease and mortality means death. So we know there's an increase in disease, that makes sense, but what's the effect on death? When we look at the individuals with cardiopulmonary disease, for every 10 microgram per square meter, 24-hour increase in particulate matter in the air. So if the level was right at 10, you would have a 0.5% daily increase in deaths. So every day there'd be 0.5% deaths. So if you had 200 deaths a day and air particulate matter was at 10, that means you could avoid one of those deaths by bringing it down to 0. So at 20, it'd be 1%. And at 30, 30 to 35, it'd be about 1.5%. So for every 100 deaths that happen in a day, one of those deaths is directly attributed to particulate matter in the air. So every 100 deaths that happen in Oakridge, we can attribute that to, based on the data that we've had in other studies, to the air particulate. It could have been avoided if we could keep air particulate low. Many of our population in Oakridge are Medicare recipients. And so some data has looked at specifically in the US at Medicare recipients and the effect of air pollution on them. There was a study that looked at all-cause mortality. So death from any reason. I mean, it could be crashing a car, it could be anything. And we found that for every 10 microgram per square meter PM 2.5 increase, there was a 7% all-cause mortality annually. So for every 10, there was a 7% increase. So if you have 100 deaths a year, which there's far more than 100 deaths a year, 7 of those deaths, from whatever reason, were directly attributed to air particulate. Now, if we're hovering around 30, that's a 21% of deaths can be avoided or minimized. The risk of that can be minimized. So how does air particulate affect the body? Like, why is it so bad? We know it affects the lungs and affects the heart and affects the blood vessels, but how does it do that? To break it down and get a little sciencey, this particulate matter gets into your lungs, and when it gets into your lungs, that's where it starts to do damage. We have these cells in our lungs called macrophages, and they try to clear out all the debris in our lung. Well, when it's doing that, it actually clears out some of the healthy tissue as well. Over a long enough period of time, that tissue breaks down. When that tissue breaks down, that's your actual lung tissue. Your lung tissue is going away. And that's what COPD is. When your lung tissue starts going away, you lose that elasticity in your lungs and they don't function quite as much because your body took out some of the healthy tissue along with the bad tissue. So after if the particulate makes it past the macrophages, it can get into the bloodstream where it can start to embed in the blood vessels and the heart and cause the same issue. These macrophages try to clear out the debris and then also take out the healthy tissue with it. And then there's a secondary effect of you're now developing pulmonary disease you have this decreased heart tissue. Your heart is having to work harder to pump blood through less tissue, the same volume of blood through less tissue. So it causes a strain on your heart. That's what we call pulmonary hypertension, can lead to congestive heart failure, and ischemic heart disease, as your heart's just not getting enough blood. So it just has all these cascading effects in the human body. And so this results in morbidity and mortality. So we start to get more disease as an increase in morbidity, and then the increased death that I spoke with earlier. And as a result, it costs the US literally not millions, not tens of millions, but billions of dollars a year. There are some estimates that in a given year, and these are old numbers, these are numbers from 2013, 2014, that direct health related costs to the US related to air pollution alone, and that does include ozone, but ozone and particulate matter, is $6.5 billion. That's a huge cost, and that's only due to air quality issues. So this is a high yield issue in that if you can decrease environmental allergens, environmental smoke, that sort of thing, you can decrease costs, not just morbidity and mortality, but cost, as well as life years. You'll often hear doctors talk about life years. It's a way to standardize how long somebody lives into identifiable chunks so that you can compare groups of people. And when people lose life years, that's years that they're not with their family. That's years of income loss for a family. Those often result in expenses for the family. The reasons for the life year losses often result in costs for families and individuals. So these can just have all kinds of cascading health effects outside of the direct effects that Oakridge has, or air particulate has on Oakridge. We live in this beautiful place, Oakridge, but it's sort of a double-edged sword. But the reasons it's beautiful are also the reasons that we have these inversions and health issues. Now, with this sort of program, there is a lot of data showing that if we can decrease indoor pollution, some of the data has come out of Africa and some third world countries where there's a lot of indoor wood stove use, and therefore people measure indoor particulate matter and see the health effects of, if you can reduce some of that indoor air particulate matter, the health effects. So that's one of the theories behind this, and I'm sure Travis will speak to it more about the effects of the air filters on indoor particulate matter. But if there's a way we can reduce the outside particulate matter, obviously the indoor particulate matter will go with it. Much of the indoor particulate matter in Oakridge, besides just wood smoke in the homes, is just smoke coming in from the outside into the house, even in individuals who don't have wood smoke homes.
Yeah. Dr. Volpe, one question we do have here that we're kind of getting a little short on time. I do want to ask a quick question, if you could quickly. How does the smoke that we'll see in sort of the Oakridge area, and really just in general all across the area, how does smoke, sort of quickly as you can, affect COVID infections and recovery for just a general person?
Yeah, so obviously it's going to delay recovery. COVID is primarily a respiratory disease. We're finding more and more that there's probably going to be chronic disease associated with COVID that we haven't yet found, just because it hasn't been around long enough. Because smoke and air particulate worsens the physiology around your lung tissue, it will make your body more susceptible to COVID. If you get it and you're exposed to smoke, and your body is going to fight harder to try and clear it, and therefore cause more damage in the end. Not to mention all the damage that was done before by trying to clear the previous smoke. Your body's just not going to have the ability to fight off COVID and smoke particulate or air particulate at the same time, leaving you to have higher risk of winding up in the ICU, as well as mortality risk.
Cool. Thank you, Dr. Blippi. If you have any additional questions, you can send them to me in chat or put them in chat. If we have opportunity here at the end, we can get to those as well. But for the sake of time, we'll go ahead and move on. The next thing that we want to talk about for the Oakridge Air program is sort of the Oakridge Air Components. And Louisa from Good Company will join us to talk a little bit about that. Louisa?
Hi, everybody. I am Louisa DeHere. I work for Good Company. So we're a sustainability research and management firm locally here in Lane County. And we're the program managers for Oakridge Air. So we're kind of the support team helping to make sure that all of these moving parts work together to have the greatest impact to benefit Oakridge residents. So what are we going to do to solve all these problems that we just heard about and these real impacts on people's health? So I'm going to talk about air filters, air purifiers, and the Firewood program, and then I'll introduce our local coordinator to talk about the upgrades program, which, as you can see, is a huge chunk of this total funding. So next slide. To start the Community Firewood program, I hope you've all heard about it. Actually started as a volunteer program between Inbound and the Southern Willamette Forest Collaborative, with kind of three goals: to reduce fuels out in the woods, to provide some local jobs, and to get people clean seasoned woods to reduce the smoke that's going out into the community. Burning wet wood is a huge problem causing smoke. People sometimes don't have the time or the ability to get good seasoned wood up in Oakridge. So they provided that service. And by partnering with Oakridge Air, we've been able to distribute over 200 cords of quality seasoned wood and buy a bunch of good equipment that will make sure that this program can continue long into the future. So we make sure that we have affordable wood, especially for folks who need it because of income or disability, and for folks on the exempt list. So if you have to burn wood in the winter in order to heat your home, either because of income or because that's the only heat source in your house, please make sure that you're on the exempt list. And that also enables you to get a discount on this good seasoned wood. The other things that we think about when this season's coming on and the nights are cold is making sure that your flue is cleaned out. You can rent a chimney sweeper from the fire department up in Oakridge, just ask. Maybe if there's maintenance that might need to be done, this is the time to do it. And make sure your wood's covered for the winter so it doesn't get wet once you get it. This program will continue probably after the program's over, just because it's set up and ready to go. So now it's just kind of running, and that's really exciting for the community to have that service. Now we can go on and talk about air filters. So the term air filter is often played with air purifier. They often basically mean the same thing. I'm gonna say air purifier, but really they really are the same thing. So it has been shown that a lot of what Dr. Volpe and Gwen talked about with these concentrations of high pollution, especially overnight, can really be helped by these freestanding air purifying systems. They plug into the wall and they just continuously circulate the air in a room to draw them through a series of filters. These are HEPA, which means they're really high efficiency, and they'll pull out 99% of the particulates in the air. So they work really well when you can close off a room in your house and just turn them on, and they will actually really clean out the particulates that are inside, which are often at the same level as outside without something like this. So we started with a partnership with Orchid Health, and they were a great partner to get us started to make sure that their most vulnerable patients, like Dr. Volpe explained, folks with chronic heart and lung concerns, were able to get one of these free purifiers. And as a part of that program, we've also committed to getting people 4 years of replacement filters. So those filters that actually go inside the unit, they need to be replaced about annually to keep them running really well. So to make sure that people get that, we are replacing them for 4 years to keep them running really well. And Nova, also up in Oakridge, has some filters too to distribute to their patients. So we really encourage folks to seek their providers out if those are your providers. And if those aren't your providers and you do suffer from one of these conditions, we're now ready to accept applications from the community. There's an application up on the Oakridge Air website. And all we're asking is to really focus on those vulnerable community members who have those heart and lung conditions so that we get those into people's hands first. So our application does ask that you kind of share with us some information about your conditions so that we can make sure that we get them into the right hands. There will also be paper applications at City Hall and the Oakridge Air office, which is up in the industrial park, probably sometime next week. So we're really looking forward to getting more of these out, especially as the winter wood smoke ramps up. We've also made cleaner air spaces all around town by installing high efficiency filter units in all of the public buildings. So all of the schools, the library, City Hall, and the police station all have upgraded filtration to help protect the health of our community workers and our kids. Those will also be cleaner air spaces in the event of a fire, hopefully post-COVID. So those are some really exciting opportunities to get access to these filters. And now I'm going to turn it over, so next slide, to Rick Zylstra, who is our champion local upgrade coordinator. He's helping to make sure that our homes are burning cleaner wood and have backup heat and are weatherized so that we're going to be safer and warmer. So I will now hand it over to Rick Zylstra.
Next slide, please. Alrighty. Yeah, my name is Rick Zylstra. I will be the project coordinator for the home heating upgrades. The primary goal for home heating upgrades are to get the most polluted stoves permanently out of the community. These are stoves that are old and poorly designed for efficiency, which means they create more smoke. Secondary goal is to provide efficient electric heat as a secondary source, such as ductless heat pumps, as well as weatherizations to homes who need it. Next slide, please. We anticipate selecting several homes to participate in a pilot project. This pilot will create the way that we can ensure we have a smooth process in place. During the pilot project, we are prioritizing homes with wood heat only, with an emphasis on uncertified wood stoves. As the program develops, we will look at other scoring factors such as health and income needs, homes with certified wood stoves that are older than 20 years, as well as wood stoves in homes paired with other sources of home heating. Next slide. For the pilot phase of the program, we will be asking individuals from the City of Oakridge exempt list to participate in the pilot. We are looking for the exempt list, the homes that are on the exempt list that have been on the list for numbers of years. We have wood heat and only have wood heat as an option, and also have participated in the inspections that were requested for the program. Using the number of years along with participation in inspections, we will gather a list of potential participants, and we will contact those selected residents to verify that there have been no changes in their heating options. We hope to find as many non-certified wood stoves as possible, and at that time we'll need photo verification of the wood stoves in question to help us find those uncertified wood stoves. Using this process, we anticipate selecting 10 to 15 homes for the pilot. Next slide, please. As the program progresses and we enter the community-wide phase, we will begin to accept applications from residents in the community who are interested. We will look at many factors to prioritize homes using the money available, such as health and income needs, homes with uncertified wood stoves that are older than 25 years, homes within the lower lying elevations of Oakridge, as well as homes with stoves and other sources of heat that are also polluting or too expensive to run. During the community-wide phase, we anticipate using a scoring matrix that will be determined by a number of factors, such as proximity to the hotspot of the worst air quality. During the wintertime weather inversions, the wood smoke settles in the lower lying elevations. Essentially, that will be creating the hotspots of poor air quality. Along with sole source heating, another criteria will be the type of heating device and the emissions associated with it. An uncertified stove will score higher when compared to a cleaner burning certified stove. Another criteria is using the information gathered from the air quality and health outcome studies. We will also apply criteria to the applications based on health-related concerns pertaining to wood smoke. Finally, income will be an additional factor to the scoring. We will be using existing low-income qualifiers such as HUD or SNAP, low income limits. From this criteria, each application will receive a score. The applications with the highest score will be placed at the top of the list, and we will work down from there, serving those that score higher on the list first. Next slide, please. As the pilot is finished and we enter the community-wide phase, we will be taking applications for those receiving upgrades. Homes that qualify for the program will start the upgrading process by first receiving an energy audit from the home assessments by a professional energy auditing team. After the auditors do an assessment of the needs of the home, we will connect the homeowners with contractors to choose from for the completion of the upgrades. Once the contractors have completed their work, the energy auditor will once again make an assessment of the home to ensure the work provided was sufficient and completed correctly, leading to a safer and more energy efficient home. And now we have time for questions.
Yeah, Rick, and I actually do have a question. This one comes from Deborah and says, a question for Rick. Will those of us on Leduc Road, 3 miles west of the city, be able to get into the heat pump program? Our smoke affects the city as well out there, as they understand. So that's the question for you out on Leduc Road. Are they eligible to participate as well?
Yes, Leduc Road is within the Oakridge Airshed. And the targeted airshed grant is for the Oakridge Airshed. So the short of that answer is yes.
Okay, cool. Another question I have too is who will be kind of hired for the home upgrades, and will they be local?
As far as the contractors are concerned, is that the question?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So perfect. So we're putting together a list of contractors that from most of the work pertaining to HVAC or electric heat pumps, we are using a list of contractors who have previously worked for similar programs. For the wood stove installations, we are trying to put together a program that will help ensure local contractors for that work. That one is still being put together, but for the HVAC, unfortunately, local contractors, we don't have a lot of those. We are hoping to get more of our local contractors in with the wood stoves and the weatherizations. So while that to answer the first part of that question, the homeowners will have a list of contractors to choose from. And the second part is we are trying our best to get local contractors to the top of those lists for the homeowners to choose from.
Awesome. And then there's another question that just showed up too. Someone is curious what the cost will be to homeowners for sort of the whether it's the home change out or the ductless heat pump or the weatherization. What's that cost to homeowners?
Well, that cost to homeowners, part of this program is to provide those for free. We are in discussions while there is no final decision yet, but if a homeowner wants to go above and beyond, then maybe they could chip in. But no, the whole program is to provide those services.
So someone who just getting their stove change out or the ductless heat pump or some immediate weatherization, that's no cost to them.
Right.
Awesome. Cool. And then one last question. Oh, go ahead.
So real quick, there are caps on the limits of spending though. I mean, yes, I would like to say yes, but there are caps, which everybody has to understand that, we can't spend an excessive amount on one home. So
Gotcha.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. And then kind of the last question here, unless another one comes down the line, is what if I don't have a wood stove for heating? Can I still participate?
I would like to say yes, but the answer is pretty much no. This grant is intended to improve air quality, and that air quality is the poor air quality in our wintertime is due to wood heat. So if we were to do that, I don't think that we would be meeting the intent of the grant. But maybe if we find everything and have money left over, that would be discussion for then. But my gut tells me that would not meet the needs of the grant.
Yeah.
If I could jump in on one piece, we're definitely going to be learning as we go with this part of the program, and that's why we're starting with that pilot, because there's going to be so many unique circumstances to people's homes. We do have some other partners with Homes for Good and St. Vincent de Paul. So if there's a home that really needs extra work that's beyond our cap, we'll do what we can to find the funds to help support that. And I don't want to exclude anyone from applying for the program, even if you don't have a current wood stove, but we will be aiming at the directing funds towards those with wood stoves first. So, we'll be 4 years going into this, so we'll definitely stay in touch, and hopefully we'll be able to get to everybody.
Awesome, thank you. I don't see any other questions here coming down the line. If you do have more questions we didn't get to, send me a chat and we'll have opportunity later with time to get to those questions. But thank you, Rick, really appreciate that so much. And the next person to have speak with us is Sarah Altimus-Pope, talk a little bit about the community spotlight, or it's not community spotlight, the smoke safety plan. Sarah.
Great, thanks Travis, and thanks everybody. Travis, if you can go to the next slide, that'd be great. So I think folks know who I am. My name's Sarah Altimus-Pope. I'm the coordinator for the Southern Willamette Forest Collaborative. And you'll also hear us talked about as South Willamette Solutions. That's the nonprofit we created about 1.5 years ago, which is an umbrella organization. That Collaborative is a project under that. And now we're bringing in contractors such as Rick to help with this Oakridge Air project under South Willamette Solutions as well. So you'll be hearing that name a little bit more in our community. I'm going to talk to you about both smoke and wildfire program updates. So when we're thinking about smoke in our community and impacts of smoke, we have our wintertime smoke, but we know as a community, we really see smoke impacts in the summertime from wildfire, but there's also chances that we could get smoke impacts from prescribed fire. So when we, as a team, the Oakridge Air Attainment Group, which is now kind of grown into Oakridge Air, started looking at the TAG grant and knew that was possible and that was coming down the line. We learned similarly, there was going to be an opportunity from the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality to apply for funding to develop a plan around a community response plan for smoke that could help communities both address smoke impacts when they happen, but allow them to do the prescribed fire burning that's needed to reduce fuels in the forest around vulnerable communities that have fire risk. And we definitely in Oakridge have fire risk. That's something that the Forest Collaborative that I coordinate, we've been working on for many years now, is forest restoration projects. And a big part of that is fuels reduction around our community. So in the Firewise portion, we'll talk a little bit more about that and hear from the Forest Service. But the reason that's important for the smoke plan is to enable us to do the prescribed fire burning that's needed around the forest, but not be impacting negatively the people that live in Oakridge in our smoke sensitive receptor area, which is what we're designated as. Also, I have on here the Firewise plans that we're working on, the Greater Oakridge Area Firewise Assessment, which ODF will talk about a little bit later, and then the City of Oakridge Firewise Assessments we want to get to next year. And the icons are some of the partners. Travis, can you move forward a slide? So the goals of the smoke safety plan are to reduce exposure and mitigate health impacts of smoke from all sources. So our plan will bring together, it's bringing together a bunch of different partners, many who are on this call tonight, to talk about how to address that. But also the secondary goal is to be able to do the increased opportunities to accomplish critical prescribed fire treatments in the wild urban interface. And when we do have the plan in place, it's something that our neighboring land management agencies, such as the Forest Service, can use to be able to get exemptions to do burning on days they otherwise would not be able to under the Oregon state guidelines. So it really actually is a problem we face in this area. Believe it or not, the Forest Service on average only has a very short window of a week or so of days throughout the entire year that they can do the prescribed fire treatments they need to do because of the threat of smoke to Oakridge. So now if we have this plan in place, we can do that work, but be able to notify the community of things that they need to do to protect their health from smoke. I can move forward one more slide. So here's kind of the components of the plan. And I wanted to tell you, we have over 40 participants that have joined in meetings that we've been holding twice a month since last June. So the city of Oakridge is the main grant recipient. We've talked with the city of Westfir. The county is involved, El Rapa, our health providers such as Orchid, the Oakridge Fire Department and Volunteer Fire Department, LCOG, all the Oakridge Air Partners, and of course the Forest Service and ODF. So the things that we're looking at as the components of this plan is first coordinating amongst all the partners when there is going to be a smoke event. So whether that's wintertime smoke, red days during because of burning wood stoves, prescribed fire smoke both in the spring and the fall from doing prescribed fire work, or as we saw in September, wildfire events and how to communicate out to the public for wildfire events. So first, how do we coordinate when there's a smoke event? Second, what are the things that we need to tell the public? What do they need to know about what to expect from smoke and when it's happening? And then third, what are the responses? So the response can be just information such as turn on your filters, shut your windows. These are the times you shouldn't go outside. And also one of the things we're gonna be working on is better air spaces. So cleaner air spaces such as the library, and eventually we're hoping to be able to work with the high school to have safer air spaces that people can go to in those more critical events such as the wildfires that we saw last month. So we're answering all these questions, will be part of this larger plan, but why we wanted to talk to you about it tonight is to let you know that this planning is going on. It is open to the public. If anybody is interested in joining these meetings, they're online, or you can call in by phone. Public's more than welcome to. And then second, if we can go to the next slide. Just wanted to give you the heads up that we're still in the drafting process of this plan, but we'll have a draft out probably towards the end of the year, and the community will have a chance to look at that and give feedback. And then we're hoping to finalize this plan by 2021. So I have up there my contact information, that phone number, the 782-3244, that's the Oakridge Air phone number, comes here to the office. You can reach both me and Rick on that number, as well as my email. So feel free to reach out if you're interested in any of this work. And I think next slide. And this is where we're going to transition to talk more about Firewise, but since we have some extra time, I might hand it back over to Travis, see if we have any questions.
Yeah, I don't have any questions that have come down the line, but so a little bit of cleanup here or just sort of clarification for people. So we're going to have some breakout groups. If you have additional questions for Gwen or Dr. Bluppy or for Orchid Health, and you want to ask additional questions on sort of the health aspect of smoke, we can put you in a special group or room with them. If you have more questions that you'd like to ask for Rick or Louisa, Kathy, as far as the Oakridge Air program is concerned specifically, and what about in this particular situation for my home, am I included, questions like that, we can put you in a breakout room with them. And if you don't really have necessarily any sort of preference for one way or the other, you can just kind of stay right there, and we'll start to get into the Firewise discussion to tell you a little bit about what that is and how Oakridge can participate or start to become a bit of a Firewise program. So if you would like to join one of these breakout groups, send me a sort of message on chat letting me know which one you want to go, if you want to go to the smoke and health aspect or the Oakridge Air Q&A, and then I can sort of direct you into either of those breakout rooms. Otherwise, just kind of hold tight and we'll start talking about Firewise. So Sarah, I think you had some, you were going to do a little bit of sharing your screen here, and I can start directing people out to the breakout rooms.
Okay, that'd be great. Switching to my screen now.
Okay. Stop the sharing there. And yeah, so just send a chat to me if you'd like to go one way or the other, and I will set you up into those breakout rooms.
Okay, bear with me with this not elegant transition, everybody. And hopefully you're seeing the slides there. So again, back to this slide, this is what we're going to talk about over this next portion of the meeting, and then also be available to answer questions about Firewise. But to give you a little bit of a frame up, we're going to hand it over to the Forest Service first to talk about some of the fuel reduction work they've been doing around Oakridge. Then I'll talk a little bit about intro to Firewise, and then hand it over to ODF, and ODF will talk about the Firewise program and the assessments that we're doing in the area. This part of the meeting, we're going to be a little more casual, so feel free to throw up questions in the chat box, and we can try and take those as we go. We probably have about total 10 to 15 minutes of presentation stuff, so we've left time for question and answer. So I'm going to hand it over now to Anne, and Anne, just let me know if you want me to advance the slide. And are you able to unmute yourself? Oh, Anne might have came in as a I'll need to, or can we make her a co-host?
Yes. Let me find her real quick, and I will do that.
Right, can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ann Trapanese. I'm a fuels planner for the Middle Fork District here in Oakridge. I'm coming to you from the Cameron Peak Fire in Colorado. So bear with me if I'm a little scattered. So starting with this first slide, and I think I first should say what a fuels planner does, just like it sounds. So I plan fuels treatments in conjunction with other activities like timber harvest on the district. So this first slide talks about the fires we've had around Oakridge and Westfir that are 50 acres or larger since 1945 to 2017. And there's obviously quite a few. I'm sure a lot of you folks have experienced the impacts of those over the years. So this is just sort of showing why you would want to become a Firewise community, why this is a concern for folks that live in Oakridge or Westfir. Can you move to the next slide, please? So the color contrast isn't great the way that looks on the slide to me. But it's just trying to show all the different fuels treatments we've done on Forest Service land in the last 10 years. And so this only shows the last 10 years. And that's roughly about 2,000 acres of treatment. And that treatment includes commercial harvest, non-commercial harvest, and piling, prescribed fire, sort of a whole suite of different activities are included in that. But we've done a lot of work over the years. There's a lot of work beyond the last 10 years. And, you know, a lot of work that we still plan to do in these areas that will be completed in 2020 and beyond. Can we move to the next slide? So Sarah, do you want me to keep talking about this slide?
Yeah, maybe we could both tag team this slide. Okay. We wanted to show, this is a progression of the fire, the Holiday Farm fire that went through Mackenzie. It was something we were talking about this 6 months ago. We thought we might need to make a case to people about why it'd be important for Oakridge to Firewise. I think we've all learned over the last month that we are still very much at risk in Western Oregon. It does take maybe an alignment of events like we saw last month, but it does happen. And us that have lived here a long enough time remember some of the bigger fires such as Warner Creek, which were just up the drainage from us. So what we wanted to share here is just how fast that fire moved and how how it burned through the community, but there still are homes that survived it. So we didn't want to show pictures of the fire per se. You know, you see a lot of those, the things on the news that are alarming, but we just wanted to kind of give a visual of the fact that that we can see these bigger fires in Western Oregon. So we'll talk a little bit more now about why, what firewising is and why it's important. So hold on here a minute while I, this will let me escape out of it. I'm going to show a video for you here. Okay, so we're just going to show the first 3 minutes of this video. We figured it'd be better than more PowerPoints because you guys have seen a lot of slides tonight. So this is a success story in Durango, Colorado from Firewise work that a community did and a fire that they were able to stop near their neighborhood. Sorry that it's embedded. We were not able to get it out of the website. So this is on the Firewise website, which I'll talk about a little bit more here in a minute.
It was a typical weekday morning, and we got a call that there was a brush fire that had started. You know, at first we could see this plume of smoke. It seemed like it was quite a ways away, and I thought, well, it'll never get here. You know, in the first 5 minutes, it went from being a start to almost 5 acres, and in the next 5 minutes, they were calling it maybe 25 acres. So it was spreading incredibly rapidly. And we went on pre-evac. And we saw it approach closer and closer, you know, and it's still quite a ways away, you know. I thought they'll stop it before it gets here, not realizing how intense it was. And I said to him, Falls Creek is an area that we can stop this fire at. The reason is that they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and it's well mitigated and it's a Firewise community. And we have the ability to slow this thing down and stop it at Falls Creek. I believe that we can save that neighborhood. They started basing their actions on the contingency that, hey, when the fire gets to Falls Creek, that's where it's going to turn the corner.
This neighborhood has committed for the last 10 plus years to reducing their wildfire risk, and they've really taken ownership of the fact that they live in an area that's prone to wildfires. They've decided that they're going to take responsibility for their land and reducing that wildfire risk to give these firefighters a chance when they come into this community.
In the back of my mind, I thought these guys are going to save this place. The area where we turned it westward and we stopped it from coming into the community of Durango, this was the pivotal neighborhood. This was the fight that won the war. We helped them save it. And that was a big compliment to us to hear them firemen, professionals say, you did a good job here. That made us feel really good. And it's not just us, it's the whole ranch.
There's no guarantees in this line of work, but what they can do is they can stack the deck in their favor. And this community has accepted that. And in this situation, they really saw the effectiveness of how that work it really improves the odds when it comes to major wildfire moving through.
I think any homeowner's responsibility living in a forest like we do is help these firemen protect your home. Fire, you don't know if one's going to happen today or tomorrow or when. You know, you can be in denial, but it's, you know, it's a possibility. You have to accept that responsibility. You love the forest, but you're going to have to clear around your home if you want to keep your home. You know, sometimes you make your own luck. And I think that's what we did. We were very fortunate to have the people, the fire resources here available for us, but it's nice to know that we helped them defend our house. Protect.
Okay, so let me get back to the slides. I probably should have led off with starting with explain what Firewise is. So it's a voluntary program that communities can participate in to become organized as communities and work together to do the mitigations to protect neighborhoods in the event of wildfire. So, so that video kind of gave you a snapshot of a success story. I know right now in the news, all we're hearing is all these horrible stories about communities being burned over, but there are so many success stories of neighborhoods and homes that have survived fire. And I think it's something that we need to be prepared for in this area. And this opportunity with the smoke safety plan is that we have all the right partners at the table that can talk about these issues. So we've been using the opportunity to also talk about Firewise and start to get organized around that. So let me see here. I think now I'm going to hand it over to Justin Patton with ODF.
Hi everybody, this is Justin Patton, the fire planner here at ODF out of Springfield. We're going to just kind of talk about, some of the benefits of why should you guys become Firewise. So this is going to be kind of step one. We're looking for just a handful of homes to participate this first year. Just kind of get the thing started, building the framework for action. Educating people about wildfire risk reduction, where to start, what's most important. The Firewise program, it's really a community building tool. And that's not just for wildfire emergencies, that can be for anything, the snowstorms that you guys have had, an earthquake in the future, who knows what might happen, just building a stronger, more connected community. And, as people see other people doing good things, reducing the risk in the community, the hope is that, more people will join in and, a lot of the neighbors that you folks have affect your chances of your home surviving from a wildfire. So kind of working together to reduce that overall risk. A Firewise forest is going to be a healthy forest as well. And then the last thing, if you guys are a recognized Firewise community, we've had some fuels reduction grants for the Oakridge area in the past, but we're going to continue to apply for them. If you guys are able to achieve the Firewise status, then that'll make us more likely to have some more funding for assistance in the future. Could you go ahead and go to the next slide, please? So kind of where we're at, the goal for this year, by the end of the year, is to have what we're going to call the greater Oakridge area become Firewise. So that's basically just all the communities and outlying homes in the surrounding areas of Oakridge, with the overall goal of being Oakridge and the surrounding area Firewise by the end of next year. And like I said, this is really just kind of the starting point, and kind of the idea is, if you can get a handful of homes to start now, then just continually add more and more homes as we go. So right now, what we currently need is at least 8 homes to be willing to just register to participate in the Firewise efforts. And really all that takes is, just giving us the okay that you're willing to participate, and then kind of recording some of the efforts that you guys are doing. And I would guarantee that almost everyone is doing some sort of a mitigation risk, whether that's mowing your lawn, removing debris, those sorts of things. So it's really a pretty small ask. And, if we can just work together as a community, we can get a lot done. So really, we just need those 8 homes. We've done some assessments for the community. We'll go ahead and seek some funding in the future, and then, provide the community members with that education of where to focus their efforts. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So that's really, we're just kind of going to give the quick snapshot there. If you guys are willing to participate, you can go onto the Oakridge Air website, oakridgeair.org/Firewise, and that's where you'll find the area to register your home. Looks like we skipped a slide. So you want to go back to the community assessment slides there? Yeah, so these are kind of the community areas broken down to more functional areas. And so as you can kind of see, the airport road community was the only community that was at a moderate or lower. And that's not to say that, houses in these areas may have defensible space, may not. This isn't an all-inclusive thing. It's just kind of an overall snapshot of the communities. But with all the communities being either high or extreme risk, what that means is in the event of a large fire interfacing the city, the outcome is not going to be good. The high risk, you're likely to lose, many structures, And in cases of the extreme danger, you're likely to lose, potentially the majority of the structures in a community. So the risk there could be pretty catastrophic.
Yeah, I wanted to share these assessments with you guys so you could see, and this is just the outlying areas, the risk that we're seeing in the outlying areas. And believe it or not, internal to Oakridge, when we get to it, we got some areas in Oakridge that are really high risk too. So just the first step is having the assessment and knowing where we sit with this. But the second step is going to be the mitigations that we know we need to do. So that'll be homeowners needing to step up and take responsibility. But Justin and myself and other organizations, Forest Service, we're committed to finding funding to helping people get that work done. So that's what this is all part of, is first getting a plan so then we can go after funding and start moving towards getting this work done. So maybe I'll go back to the question slide. Why this wants to. Okay, so I wanted to share resources that are out there about Firewise. We could, spend this time and give you guys more information about Firewise if you want, but we wanted to pause here and see if there were questions from the audience about Firewise, about the process, and also wanted to share with you here some of these resources where you can go and see more videos and see about some of the tools that are out there. So Travis, do we have any questions in the chat box?
No questions have come in the chat box from the for Firewise questions. Most of it's been people asking to go into one breakout room or the other, but no questions for Firewise.
Okay, well, the next slide we have here is just information on Oakridge Air. We could keep it open and do more slides around the education, but I don't know what would be best use of time.
I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to close the breakout rooms. It looks like they just finished up, and then we can have an opportunity for more people to ask more questions about just the programs in general, I guess, if you'd like to go that route.
Okay, great. Let me pull this down and see if. Here we go, more info. So here's the more information on oakridgeair.org. We did want to land here, and maybe I'll take a minute, and if people can put questions in the chat box if they have either about Oakridge Air or about Firewise. But we did want to point out to the community that we do have a really great web page. A minute ago, I was showing you the Oakridge Air /Firewise page that's on the Oakridge Air, but we also have a page that has our air quality index, where you can see what our real-time air quality is in Oakridge. You can get updates about the programs. There'll be more information as we get through the phases towards upgrades on how to sign up for those. The phone number that is on there is Oakridge Air phone number. So that's for the office here up at the industrial park. We're located at the old Pope and Talbot Mill offices. So that's where Rick is at. And I'll let Rick jump in and share his office hours if he wants. And then I also wanted to point out our Facebook page. We have a pretty active Facebook page. We are putting up both during the smoke events from the wildfires. We're posting information on there, sharing out information coming from both the county and El Rapa. We're now regularly putting out the information from the home heating air quality days, so red days.
Yeah, the Homewood heating virus. I do actually have a question here for you though, Sarah, that did show up in the chat. It was, could you describe an ideal Firewise candidate property, such as like extreme or high area acreage vegetation? Like what are, I guess, what are those properties that are good, real Firewise candidates or properties?
Okay, I will go to the next slide. Maybe Justin can turn back on if he wants to, because he's the one who can speak so well to this stuff. But really what you do want to do is make sure that your home has at least 30 feet around it cleared of material that's ladder fuels that could either burn the material around your house or get into your home. So Justin, do you want to talk to some of this?
Yeah, so, there's really, when you're considering wildfire, there's two things you have to protect against. One is the fire physically being able to burn up and make contact with your structure. And the other thing that sometimes is often overlooked is the firebrands or embers that are driven from the winds in the fire. And, you can have a pretty good fuel break around your house, but you could potentially have a fire burning, you know, in the case of the Holiday Farm fire, we were picking up spot fires up to 2 miles out in front of the fire, which that's, you know, as extreme as it gets, but that, you know, with the surrounding forests of Oakridge, that could pretty well expose any homes in the community to those embers. And the things you got to look out there, you know, the stuff really close to the house, removing the fine fuels in the roofs, your gutters. Sarah, you kind of mentioned that first 30 feet around the home is critical. And also, you know, probably the most important area is that first 5 feet. You know, people love to have plants and stuff around their homes. And that's great, but you need to keep them maintained. You know, we like to see green things in there, if at all possible, in that first 3 feet next to the home. If you can have something non-flammable, such as rock or bare soil instead of bark mulch, that's ideal. And then there's some other things to consider, more like urban fuels, you know, patio furniture, rugs that are made of any sort of petroleum products. Those are going to ignite more easily than any sort of natural fuels. So that's the basics. And we don't currently have any funding for our fuels reduction in the Oakridge area, but I'm always more than happy to, you know, talk to people one-on-one, or if people are really interested, I can come out and take a look and do an assessment on the home and give pointers. And I can, I'll put my information in the chat just in case anyone wants it.
And I did notice today when I was pulling some stuff up, the Lane County Firewise program is eligible to homes that are outside the Oakridge city limits. And I know that we have been successful in the past with some of the homeowners in the High Prairie getting some of those fundings, but there's a whole host of things that can help with. And I think I will hit upon again how much it can help us if you take the survey. I'll go back to it here. So this is a link here that's not going to help you. Maybe someone can drop it in the chat box. Grace, if you can do that. And it is also on the Oakridge Air Facebook page, the website, and the collaborative Facebook page. We've been putting it out. But this survey will help. It'll just ask you how many hours a year in the past year have you done yard work or maintenance or Firewise your property. And if we can get 1 volunteer hour per every home in our assessment areas, so for greater Oakridge area, it's about 440 homes, 1 volunteer hour, then we can at least start to call ourselves a Firewise community. And we'll have to do that every year. So that's how you can help us as homeowners. And then there'll also be a question on there of whether or not you want to sign up to pledge to be a Firewise home. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It means you want to work towards becoming Firewise. And as long as we have 8 homes per neighborhood, that's enough to anchor us as a Firewise community and continue to do that work. Any other questions come up, Travis?
No, but lots of good links in the chat that Grace has put in there. I also had a question that was earlier in the evening that I'll just sort of mention here. Someone asked if these slides would be available on the Oakridge Air website, and they're not on there right now, but we will definitely get these slides available on the website for people to look and use as a resource. But no real additional chats coming down, and the breakout rooms look like they concluded and they're back with us. So that was kind of the whole agenda, and 7:18, so a couple minutes early. If anybody has a question that they'd like to ask, this is the opportunity to put in the chat and we can address it, whatever it may be, from Firewise to the smoke safety plan to the Oakridge Air program. Put it in the chat box real quick and we can answer that. But otherwise, that will sort of be the community meeting here this evening. And we appreciate sort of everybody who took the time out of their evening to find out more about the Oakridge Air program and all the work that's being done from our local partners to really kind of get the Oakridge Air program off the ground and running, as well as making sort of Oakridge more defensible against wildfires, because as we're seeing, wildfires are certainly a reality for the Pacific Northwest and Oregon. And with the wildfires comes smoke, and then smoke in general has a big impact on health. So there's a lot of different multifaceted aspects to fires and smoke in our area. And all the work here is a goal to just keep our community sort of safe and protect our health and to protect our property. So we appreciate you taking the time out of your evening and joining us this evening. And certainly we'll interact with all of you over the next 5 years. The Oakridge Air program continues.
Well, thank you, Travis. I appreciate everything that you guys have done, and Sarah and all of the presenters. And thank everybody that, including my dog, evidently, who likes the program. So with that, good night, everybody.